Hello everybody and welcome to Planet SkyFF, the world where everything revolves around £50,000. My name's Such.
And my name is James.
Instead of Sky, we can do a Tottenham and release it to the public if you want, sir.
You're okay, you know. Since we last recorded our last Sky podcast, my football team has lost to Burnley and lost to Middlesbrough. At least, unlike the trip to Burnley, I didn't go to Middlesbrough. And I nearly did.
There's Tottenham later on today for the Patreons. It's a good time to sign up to Patreon. The best way to sell Patreon is for Tottenham for the meltdowns when the shit hits the fan. It's worth the money for that alone. Looking forward to it, bro. Today we've got to talk about Sky first, though, and Tottenham.
Please, let's talk about Sky.
I went up about 1,000 places.
Wow,
I was
up
like
to about 12k.
I was 5,200. But honestly, in this, like, you joke, but in this climate with Sky and everyone being so similar, going up about 1,000 places is a big deal from 5.2 to 4.2 because I've been doing well and not making any headway for a while. I had JWP on Friday, captain, so I got 71 points. I don't know if that's good or not, but it feels like it's done me good. JWP on Friday, 4-pointer doubled up. It's all right, isn't it? It's not too bad. How many points did you get?
JWP 60 passes as well, so just scraped in the little pass into you.
They all count.
Yeah, some were over, some just under this. Cancelo on Saturday against Everton, while you and I were rather drunk. He missed by 1 on everything. I mean, he missed passing by 2, tackles by 1, shots by 1. We both captains Kane. So that was a decent result.
How many points did you get? Just that?
69.
Okay.
Stop laughing.
So 71 is not bad. Like, Kane captain came through. On the Sunday, I went with Bowen over Kilman. If anybody else had Jose Sarr or what have you. But then Bowen didn't do anything, but then nobody else really did.
Kilman actually hit passing tier. There was a number of passing tiers for Wolves players in that game.
It wasn't enough of a difference to affect rank. And then yesterday evening, I decided not to gamble on Yuri Tielemans with Maddison, Vardy not around and stuff. I thought it's not worth it. I'm going to stick with Pope. And despite losing 2-0, Pope goes and gets man of the match, save tier 2. And so decent for Nick Pope, and ended up actually matching some of the Leicester guys, even the defensive ones.
Yuri Tielemans' passes last night was madly low. Like against Burnley, you expect a lot of the ball and stuff, but he only had about 20 passes last night. Really strange, because one of the beauties of Tielemans kind of falls into a little bit like the James Ward-Prowse category, in the sense that all the tiers are kind of available to him in any given game. Basically, passing tiers not in the most high-profile ones, unless they're playing Tottenham. But he was miles off last night and was withdrawn about 20 minutes to go. My decision with not going Leicester last night was, I think the moment is still to come with them in terms of like the Brentford entry on the FA Cup quarter-final weekend. I think is decent. They've obviously got Leeds Saturday, and I think that really added to the appeal of people, even just looking at it and going, I can chain this and go a Leicester player for Burnley, captain, Leeds Saturday, move it on, come back to it even for the Brentford game if you wanted to play it that way. Tielemans would have been the one I'd have gone for as well, in all honesty. But I also decided, interestingly, that it might be an interesting one in terms of reflecting on it and going, when the Brentford game comes round, if I want to buy a Leicester player, I may look at it now and go, what am I going to do? I'm going to chase the same Tielemans points of everybody else?
Get Vardy in, mate.
Going to Vardy, or going to James Maddison, or whatever at that point in time. So I decided not to do it. Plus the psychological, which we've all experienced a few times, in terms of, had I got Tielemans in last night, there'd have been a serious temptation to obviously captain him. And I've got a player sitting there who, despite conceding 2, has still got, 6 points last night, I think. So there was some great banter I noticed going on our SkyFF Slack channel last night between the patrons in terms of whether it was deserved, whether it was not. There was I've literally only seen the goals because I was watching the mighty Tottenham at Middlesbrough. But a lot were saying, look, up until the first goal, he was clear he was going to be man of the match. So, interestingly, still got it. Surprising one.
And you talked about the FA Cup briefly there yesterday. Obviously, we've got more FA Cup today. Liverpool, Norwich, West Ham away at Southampton, Chelsea away at Luton. So you said before we started recording that this pod may age, and you're obviously right. There is a little bit more we can talk about with fixtures, but post FA Cup today specifically, we know Everton playing Boring Hood tomorrow.
Boring Hood?
Boring Hood. That's what we used to call Boreham Wood, because there's nothing to do there for people outside of Boreham Wood that don't know anything about it. There's a Sports Direct. And there's a Nando's, and I think that's about it, mate. Boreham Wood.
What do you think I did in Burnley last Wednesday?
Boring Hood. But yeah,
and I left.
Not hugely relevant, but yeah, we could be talking very different in terms of strategy for the next 3 or 4 weeks up until April. However, Sky listeners, on Friday we're recording a pod once we know the draw for the FA Cup and what's happening, and we will add on a bit of Sky on the end of that for once we've got the clarity. But April TV fixtures were announced.
That podcast on Friday, just to follow up on that, is going to be heavy in terms of what I think like the midweek schedule may look like in 33. So it's going to be slanted towards FPL, but I think
fixtures
still
related.
Found it useful in terms of knowing which teams are really likely to play that midweek and stuff like that. So you'd recommend that on Wednesday. What was your question? So sorry.
No more. April TV is announced now, right? So we've got a little bit of clarity around some of the April TV fixtures. The Sunday the 3rd, for example, we've got West Ham at home to Everton, Tottenham at home to Newcastle, as 2 fixtures that we have. I mean, at the moment, it looks like West Ham at home to Everton's the better fixture to target, because Newcastle are doing okay.
Easy, sweetheart. The chances are, I mean, what's interesting with these April, the first 2 weeks is all we have in terms of April TV fixtures. It hasn't thrown up anything that's concerning.
No.
Even to the extent, I mean, that Sunday, yeah, Kane, Bowen, whatever, they'll both be fine depending on the route you go down. Obviously, if West Ham lose to Southampton tonight and Tottenham and West Ham play each other in that quarter-final weekend, it adds to the appeal of both. I mean, for example, I've got on my plan at the moment to sell Jared Bowen most likely next Thursday. But should West Ham lose tonight, he might end up hanging around, for example. Yeah. We've got Monday the 4th, Palace Arsenal. Shouldn't cause any concern. So many people obviously still own Gallagher. I've currently got Gallagher going in my plans. But a lot of people have got Arsenal now or planning to go Arsenal this Sunday. We spoke a lot about the Watford game being kind of the entry point for Arsenal. Remember, they play Villa on the Saturday of the FA Cup quarter-final weekend. I actually went to Gabriel last Thursday, Suj. Because Potter really nicely had his press conference on the Thursday and said that Webster had a setback. And the planned transfer was Webster to Gabriel this coming Sunday. So I decided to get him in, captain him against Wolves. So he's already sitting there kind of ready for that entry point. So Palace Arsenal shouldn't cause anybody any fears. And even Newcastle Wolves, he's normally the sort of one you go, oh, that's a pain in the rear. But because of the fixtures Wolves have had and the extra fixtures, obviously a lot of us are on Kilman or Jose Sarr or similar.
Both. And obviously, my plan still.
And with Newcastle having these back-to-back extra midweek fixtures, there's potentially going to be entry points for them. I mean, I've got Alan St. Maximin penciled to come in next Thursday.
17th? Or the 10th.
The night when there's all the Thursday fixtures.
Southampton game.
Yeah.
That's the 10th, we don't play that day. We've got a little holiday south of Spain, mate, Sevilla.
Bowing to St. Maximin is kind of one of 2 planned moves that I've got for that night. So even that, Newcastle Wolves doesn't cause any concern. Saturday the 9th, there's a lot of games penciled in. But just a note on that at the moment. So City Liverpool's been moved to the Sunday on the 10th of April, 4:30pm kickoff. If either of them play in the Champions League on the Tuesday, that game will be moved back to the Saturday at 5:30. And Aston Villa versus Tottenham will be moved to the 4:30 Sunday slot instead. And I think that's useful to know because, obviously, Sunday again, possibly Kane at Villa could be a useful captaincy on that Sunday. Although Norwich-Burnley is the other game, which is a lot of people are looking to maybe move Pope on in this kind of next period. Perhaps an Edward Mendy or Jose Sarr or some Aaron Ramsdale. There's a few choices. But even that, just looking further down, like at Pope at Norwich, that's another 22 points. so in the bag, isn't it? But interestingly, if those fixtures stay as has been mapped out, then actually looking at the Saturday the 9th of April, it's not brilliant from a captaincy perspective. You've got United away to Everton, And I think at that point, there won't be too much ownership on the likes of Ronaldo, Bruno Fernandes. Obviously, Kane/Son would be at Villa. Jared Bowen would be at Brentford. You got Watford against Leeds against each other. That Saturday, the fixtures aren't great. And there's 2 other fixtures that could move to the Sunday, depending on European results. So yourself, Suj, obviously, if you beat Seville, then the game against Brentford would move to Sunday the 10th. And if Leicester beat Rennes in Europa Conference League, their fixture at home to Crystal Palace would move to Sunday the 10th. So although there's 7 fixtures currently labelled for that Saturday the 9th, it could go down to 5, and the Sunday the 10th could increase to 4. Although I'd say West Ham and Leicester have both got tough ties. That Rennes tie is not easy
No, it's
for
not
Leicester,
gonna be easy
actually.
for them and
we played
for
them,
us as
obviously,
well.
in the Conference League, got so scared after the first time, didn't turn up for the second time. They're a decent side, actually. I think they're 3rd in Ligue 1, so Leicester won't find that easy. You're
Sevilla
tied
second in
La
La
Liga.
Liga, mate.
It's obvious that
Yeah.
it's a very tough time.
Yes, indeed.
The other real entry point that obviously people are looking at for next Thursday is Chelsea. Mm-hmm. So we now know that if either Chelsea at Luton or Norwich at Liverpool win tonight, Chelsea will play at Norwich next Thursday, as we'd predicted. And it's mass entry Chelsea point. But how big, Suj? How big?
Yeah, good question.
I think it's the main question at the moment. How big on Chelsea next Thursday if that fixture happens? And even if it doesn't, obviously the game will stay on FA Cup quarter-final weekend, and then you can go into them when they play Newcastle on the Sunday instead. And the question remains the same. How big? So I think most of us are looking at it and going, this is an opportunity for something like a block defence.
Yeah, so it would be Norwich, Newcastle, Brentford, and maybe... it's just Norwich, Newcastle, Brentford. You're talking about a 3-game window for Chelsea to steam in.
Yeah, and then afterwards it's Southampton, and I forget what they've got in 33. That's obviously dependent on FA Cup progression. Mm-hmm. But then either way, they will definitely play in that midweek afterwards as well. That's a certainty. Chelsea will play in that midweek of match week 33. So the question remains, how big, how hard? I mean, if you compare, say, Cancelo over the Chelsea boys, there's certain gains there, isn't there? Plus, are we about to come into a heavier rotation period with City? I think some of their more recent league results, the defeat to Tottenham, the draw with Southampton, has obviously drawn Liverpool back in, but they can't really take their eye off the ball. But would you say someone like Cancelo's suddenly expendable?
We talked about how he is
dirty,
in
isn't
FPL.
it?
I don't know if it is. I didn't sell Webster at the weekend. I should have, but that makes it very easy for me to go to Chelsea defender. Kevin De Bruyne for me. I'd rather sell De Bruyne, keep Cancelo than sell Cancelo. De Bruyne to Mason Mount seems interesting to me, but I might even just double up at the back. Reece James is the one that I think isn't getting enough attention, mainly because he's only just come back from injury, and so is a risk. But I mean, his ceiling is ridiculous, isn't it, really? I think I might gamble on Reece James, I also think if I'm feeling fruity, I might do an FPL as well. Reece James is the one that is a big gamble, but has such a high ceiling, mate.
But I don't think you need to push that with the uncertainty. So Thiago Silva, great option as well. Rudiger's going to be so popular. And I think Edward Mendy is a good choice for a lot of people as well. My current plan at the moment has me getting Rudiger next Thursday, but that's it at the moment. I can't define, this time next week I can, but I can't define now how
this
many...
time tomorrow, maybe you might even be able to think about it a bit more.
The draws are possibly impactful
Friday,
as well.
Let's say Friday, yeah.
But certainly by the time we do the Sky Pod next Wednesday, I can say to you, look, my plan is I'm buying 1 Chelsea, 2 Chelsea, 3 Chelsea. One way or the other, certainly be 1 if that Norwich fixture happens, and I would captain Rudiger. You also, of course, that night get the benefit of seeing the team as well. So in the case of perhaps Reece James, you okay, right, he is playing against Norwich, for example. The problem I've got, and I think a lot of other people are going to have, is there's a lot of players who I'd say I would be happy to move on, but it doesn't feel right. So examples, Rafinha, decent fixtures coming up for Leeds. Manager's obviously just changed. Style's going to change. His position might change a little bit, interestingly, even as well. Wouldn't be surprised if he starts playing as a 10 even, possibly. And they obviously covered that Friday night with Wolves. They've got good fixtures either side as well. They've obviously got the extra fixture the same night against Aston Villa. So Coutinho falls into the same place. I'm going to bin Coutinho on the night that he's playing, and he's one that I would think would be expendable. Gallagher's one I've got down to go potentially, and so too Jared Bowen, as I'd said. But I might not want to move Bowen if suddenly the Tottenham West Ham game is going to happen on that FA Cup quarter-final weekend, because that may save me as well entering, if I've got Bowen and Kane and they play each other, that I can push back the Leicester entry even further if I want to. Gabriel, a lot of people are going to go and buy Arsenal this week, for example, so Gabriel, Ben White, Ramsdale, and the following midweek, Arsenal got extra fixture, and Arsenal are going to play in that FA Cup quarter-final weekend. So no sooner would you go in and have, a 2v1 Chelsea v Arsenal, straight afterwards is an Arsenal 2v0 against Chelsea. So he'd be difficult to move on. And the same applies to even, say, Trent, Virgil van Dijk. You go, okay, great. I can move them on. But it's the same thing. Liverpool have the extra game the following midweek against Arsenal. So there's not actually even specifically a game there. Kilman, budget-wise, I think he's just going to stick there at the moment. And even in the case we spoke about Cancelo, obviously on the Monday after, City go to Palace. Mm-hmm. You still want to captain Cancelo or AN other than, don't you? So I think for a lot of people...
Yeah, it's the only game that day.
For a lot of people, how hard they go into Chelsea might be dependent on the make-up the squad. And as we've said, most people have got really similar teams at the moment. I don't think that the push into Chelsea, in terms of a blanket defence, is going to be quite as big as people are maybe suspecting it'll be, because I just can't see the avenues to do it in terms of who I'm selling and stuff. James Ward-Prowse would be another one. If suddenly he's got that fixture against Burnley, don't want to move him on. And then what about Pope to Mendy then, if Burnley's then got the extra fixture? So it is really dependent on a lot of what happens tonight specifically. But I don't see how people are going to quite manoeuvre to go 4-5 Chelsea at the back. I'm not sure it's going to work for people. No. And I'm also not convinced that it's worth it. We have to remember, I mean, in terms of the passing tiers and stuff, that, Norwich, Burnley, some of these fixtures, Burnley obviously Saturday, you could go early, particularly if you've got injury problems. If you've got an injury problem that comes up to, let's say, I don't know, one of my players got injured tonight in a cut, let's say Jared Bowen got injured tonight, I mean, I would buy Rudiger on Saturday, for example. Yeah. But I'm conscious as well that they're third in the league, and they're going to finish third in the league, aren't they? Mm. So is there rotation there as well? You've got Champions League the midweek after. They've got Norwich Thursday, Newcastle
They've got a lead
Sunday.
In the Champions League. They're going to be comfortable in the Champions League. They won 2-0, didn't they?
Yeah, but they're still not going to go to Lille and rest their team and put themselves in trouble and stuff. Remember, obviously, no away goals now as well, right? So if Lille beat them 3-1, it's extra time, doesn't make a difference and stuff, right? So the 2-0's not as strong as it would have been in previous years. So they've got, if the Norwich fixture obviously gets brought forward to the Thursday, it's Norwich Thursday, Newcastle Sunday, Lille Wednesday. How confident are we even that these guys start regularly? Beyond Rudiger, and Mendy, to be fair, generally, although Kepa plays the odd league game every now and again, down at the end of last season, didn't it? What's my confidence in them? So I think it might just be a case where I go Rudiger, I buy him, I captain him for a few of those games, probably Norwich and Newcastle, to cover off the big problem, but also accept I'm actually going to be losing. Yeah. And therefore, is there, in your opinion, Serge, a case to not go with any of them?
No. Again, the second half of that is how many transfers do you have left?
But even just going Rudiger...
Because if you've got a lot of transfers, then definitely get one or two. But if you don't have a lot of transfers, you're trying to preserve them, then that's when there's possibly a case.
This is possibly what I'm consciously thinking is, if I just go Rudiger, I'm losing. Even by captaining him in those Norwich-Newcastle fixtures, I'm still going to lose, because I know there's plenty of people out there are going to go for a couple defensively and are going to make it work. So is there a case for me to say, actually, I'll just leave it completely? That feels like a massive gamble.
It is a gamble, and at this stage of the season, when you want to make up ground, it is difficult to make up ground. I can see the why people would want to do it, but I mean the fixtures are so good there. And to be honest, worry about it tomorrow, because that's when we're going to need to think about it.
Well, that's the other problem with the Thursday the 10th as well. So if we look at it now in terms of what we see, you've obviously got Wolves are at home to Watford, so Kilman, considerable. Leeds v Villa, Coutinho, Ramsey, Rafinha, okay, fine. You've got James Ward-Prowse. People are going to enter into Newcastle that night, possibly Alan St. Maximin, or maybe even Ryan Fraser might be a cheeky little punt people want to maybe consider short term. So there are alternative captaincy options, but when you drop Rudiger there, away to Norwich, you can't help but look at it and go, Ash, 20 points. Which one of them other guys have I mentioned are going to cover it? And then even Sunday the 13th, what's my alternative to Rudiger? It's Jared Bowen at home to Villa. It's not amazing, is it?
So I'm going to stop you talking about Chelsea for a second, because half the questions we've got on Twitter are about Chelsea.
That doesn't surprise me.
And we can get specific on some situations. Just talk to me about captaincy for the next kind of block of fixtures, which is kind of 4 days. Saturday, what are you thinking at the moment? Are you just going to go blind with Salah or Trent?
It's not blind. It's with my eyes open.
No, West Ham. Or are you thinking of going a little bit more?
Can I just say
with
on
Conor
Trent,
Gallagher or something?
Trent's a really unusual Sky asset in the sense that we know his amazing ability, his creativity, his attacking returns, etc. I never land on the right side of him in Sky, ever.
Yeah.
Ever. It's like every time I don't own him, it's like, oh my God, this guy's killing me. Whenever I do, it doesn't seem to...
He hasn't done much for a while, has he?
Doesn't seem to be anything. And he's really unusual in the sense that actually he's a fullback that you really want to consider. And I wonder if actually it's better just not to. Like, I feel like he's expendable, but then I don't exactly that. What am I going to do? I'm buying Rudiger to play against Norwich. Then I miss Trent against Brighton. Okay, then I got Rudiger against Newcastle. Then I miss Trent against Arsenal. I don't know if it makes sense to even be making that move. Then they come round and play on the other side of the international break, assuming that Liverpool and Chelsea do the business tonight. Salah Saturday for me. I think, yeah.
I'm going to go Salah as well. Safe option.
Alternative, it's Rudiger.
Yeah, if you own. Or if you buy. Yeah.
What do you think? How do you fancy your chances Saturday?
No, I don't. We're playing midweek again today. That Wolves game took a lot out of us. It is Sunday.
They won't batter you though. No way.
No, I don't think it'll be more than 1 or 2 goals in it. So, yeah. But I think Salah. I mean, he's just on such good form.
I think. Yeah, if you've got the Chelsea defensive this weekend, it's possibly an early differential to get on it, knowing as well that many people won't go there till next Thursday as well.
On the Sunday, Arsenal away at Watford, and then United City in the derby. Chelsea, you're going to go, Cancelo over Gabriel away at Watford. Yeah. Like, I don't own any Arsenal. If I'm going to buy Arsenal, that's when I'm going to buy them. And away at Watford seems a much better fixture than the derby.
Do you know which team has the worst home record in the league this year?
Home record?
Yeah.
Watford?
Yeah, it is, yeah. Yeah, I've got about 6 more points away from home than at home, actually, interestingly.
So why Cancelo over Gabriel?
Because Cancelo's still the bollocks, and this is the problem with the idea of making him kind of as a possible expendable. The Palace game is a nightmare. In terms of, you definitely want him for the captaincy for that, and he's a fullback option for anything, isn't he? I mean, he's literally a fullback option, but you could captain him in any game, can't you? Am I concerned about them playing United? Nah, I'm still going Cancelo for captain Sunday.
On the Monday night, obviously you're at home to Everton. It's got to be Kane or Son, whoever
I really
you
thought
own.
you were going to say it's got to be Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison.
Kane or Son, whoever you own, clearly is going to be the one to go to for that.
What's particularly interesting Kane is the standout. If you're short of budget, Sonny's fine. Particularly as, he was abysmal last night. He wasn't the only one. But I said this to you a couple of months ago on our Tottenham podcast. There are away games where it gets a bit like that, and he don't want to know, actually. He downs tools. Kane is definitely the standout, but if you can't afford it and you want to get Sonny, fine. I think, interestingly, as much as I've just criticised Son, should you lose tonight is a case of going a double. And it's something I was thinking about originally anyway, looking at a couple of weeks ago before the fixture. In fact, last week, before the fixture at Burnley. Could I make it work to get both Kane and Son in, because obviously if Tottenham do end up playing West Ham on Sunday the 20th, I mean, where would you stand on captaincy then? Would you just go Kane, Son, Bowen, or would you still feel the necessity to buy a Leicester player, for example?
I'd go with who I owned.
Yeah, I think you're right, yeah.
Kane. Yeah.
So that'll add to the appeal, and suddenly what you've got there with Tottenham will be a 4v1 over a few, and that's without captaincy. So there is a case, I think, particularly if West Ham lose tonight, to look at the idea of, can you add Son to Kane? I mean, Kane's ownership has exploded massively, and it'll only get higher again on Monday, won't it? So Son might be the way to get a differential. And to go back to the Chelsea point, that's it. You rather than using that money for Rudiger, can you rework something else to go, actually, well, I'll try and get my gain from double Tottenham offensive. And actually, on the other side of what would be the potential West Ham game, you got Newcastle at home on the Sunday. I think it's stand out again. And then that Villa game might get moved to the Sunday as well, stand out again. So you definitely couldn't move on at the likes of Harry Kane at the moment. And if you're sitting there with Son, I'd be looking to think, how am I getting Kane to go with him and not considering selling Son either? I think the actual fixtures coming up are better suited to Sonny, bar Brighton away is not a great game for him, but the other fixtures are okay for Sonny.
Last but not least, the Thursday was the second half of what would FPL double game week here. I'm probably going to go Jose Sarr at home.
Oh, next Thursday?
At home to Watford.
Plan is Rudiger. At the moment, that's the plan, but it could change.
If he has a game.
At the moment, I've got it bust on Rafinha. First home game under new manager.
Yeah, obviously Chelsea having a fixture affects things, but if they don't, I think Jose Sarr.
I say I've got it bust. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did set it up this morning. Yeah, it's bust on Rafinha. Yeah.
Good. Let's answer some of these Twitter questions, James, that we've had in. Not a huge amount, but all very focused, which is nice. FPL Thinker.
So a lot of people got to wait.
Yeah. Who do you think, captaincy aside, scores the most points between now and the end of the season in each position? Goalkeeper.
Good question.
Pope. Pulling out some man of the matches. A lot of saves.
I will say Edison.
You think Edison still?
Yeah, I think, and this is removing captaincy, yeah, just points. Yeah, I think Edison, the more difficult it gets for City, the more Guardiola tends to
keep it tight.
Yeah, go into a defensive focus. So, yeah, I bet there'll be a number of City 9-pointers for Edison and the odd 11 as well.
Defender, Cancelo.
Possibly Rudiger might, and this is the problem, might push it with the extra fixtures.
You don't think if Van Dijk or what have you will come close? There won't be much in it, but I still think Cancelo will be the highest win.
Yeah, Cancelo.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a goalkeeper now I'd like to throw out there. And actually, there's two teams, Leicester we've mentioned. The other team people we should really keep an eye on is Everton. That result last night has possibly opened up that Everton might have a serious number of single game days to come in later April and in May.
Midfield. Jared Bowen. Conor Gallagher.
Midfield. Jesus. I will say Maddison.
You think so? Most points between now and the end of the season.
Why not? Or why?
Why not? I'm just looking now. Midfielders.
Kevin De Bruyne.
Well, Jared Bowen's top of the tree at the moment. Conor Gallagher second. Bruno Fernandes second. Rafinha third.
Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah, we'll see. And up top,
Harry.
Mo Salah.
No, Harry.
No way.
Yeah, Harry.
James is so lily white-eyed there.
I'm really not after what I watched last night.
So how can you think Harry Kane's going to score more points than Mo Salah between now and the end of the season?
Statistical numbers are going through the roof at the moment.
Except for the win column, which isn't going through the roof at the moment. FPL Hambone. Bowen to Rudiger and Pope to Mendy this weekend just feels right, even if it breaks the usual transfer rules. Are you tempted to?
This weekend?
Pope's got Chelsea, so it's flipping the keepers, and Bowen's away at Liverpool.
Flipping the keepers against each other. The danger is, which you know, and this is Minster well noticed, that game could be 0-0, 1-0, couldn't it? To Burnley. And if it is, Pope's cleaning up, isn't he? Whereas the other way, it's probably just the 9-pointer for Mendy, whereas Pope could legitimately be like the 15-pointer or so, yeah. I get it, though, because you'd look at... Most of us would probably predict that game at the weekend and go, 1-2-0 to Chelsea, in which case it's probably 4 or 5 points for Pope and 9 for Mendy. But that's it, isn't it? Probably the positive gain of that flip is possibly... You'd expect Pope to get saved here, wouldn't you? So the positive gain you're expecting on it's 4 or 5 points. Okay, fine. The worst case scenario is the other way, that it hits you for like 13 or so. You couldn't see Mendy outscoring Pope by 13 or so at the weekend, because that would be really surprising.
No.
So I'm going to say no. And what was the other one? Bowen to...
Rudiger. If they have the Norwich game, I think it makes sense.
That one looks a bit better, because Bowen's obviously playing against Liverpool. And again, you'd probably look at that and go, Rudiger is minimum 5 against Burnley, as long as he obviously starts. Whereas Bowen probably ceiling against Liverpool's maybe 8-pointer or so, like if he scores.
Mm-hmm.
So that one, yeah, I don't mind as much. And it obviously gives you the head start on the Chelsea assets. I won't rule that one out. Pope to Mendy, no.
Couple of transfer-related questions. Alex Turner, in your opinion, excuse me, James, when is the time to use transfers and attack? Is it now, or should I be conserving them? He's got 20 left. It's that's 2 a week, really.
The period coming up is probably going to be one of the best periods of gains left. However, I think in terms of trying to do something different, like genuinely steaming into like block Leicester offensively right at the end, or even Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison to do something really different towards the end of the season. You can hold them back. It's probably defined by how many players do you want next Thursday, is probably really what the answer is for most people in that situation. How many new players do you want, or can you get to next Thursday, is going to have a real impact. And you weigh up things like what I've said, like if you're just going to go Rudiger, do you genuinely go, shit, I'm going to fight against it? Like, remember last year when I went against Azpilicueta? And it worked, right? And there was some luck involved in that as well. But you can go against and find your own path.
Ben only has 12 transfers left, so much fewer. And he wants to know whether he should bother with single game days, such as Wolves, Leeds, and Newcastle, Everton. Would it be worth a transfer in this situation? The thing with Wolves is you get a fixture gain if you go...
And Leeds, next Thursday.
So I would definitely think Wolves, Leeds is worth covering off. But Newcastle, Everton...
There's no reason. I mean, even with Wolves and Leeds as well, you can even wait till the Sunday and have a 3-0 and come straight back off. Remember, in the case of Wolves as well, that will potentially cover you that Friday night fixture with Newcastle now in April as well. So there's literally no reason to be skipping Wolves v Leeds. None.
Should there be... It's got Van Dijk and Laporte at the moment, and is thinking of ditching both for Chelsea defenders. Would you ditch both Van Dijk and Laporte, or just Laporte? Thinking of, obviously, Rudiger first choice and then adding Thiago Silva to that.
In the case of Laporte, because of perhaps growing rotation fears a little bit with
and
him,
you're never going to captain him, really.
as long as you've got Cancelo.
Yeah.
I genuinely think if City didn't have that Monday night game against Palace, we'd be coming off all of them. So I think Laporte, is you can move on. The problem with Van Dijk is, like I said, it comes back the other way the following week, where you got Liverpool, Arsenal, and you got Liverpool, Brighton in between the 2 Chelsea games. I'm not sure about that one. Laporte, even though he's absolutely brilliant in this game, and you have to know, of course, when you sell players like Laporte, like he could get 40 points in his next 4 games and comfortably outscore Chelsea defensive. But I think Laporte on if you've got Cancelo makes sense.
Ian Parent's got the last question of the show, James. If Southampton win tonight, well, this question's irrelevant, Ian, because they're not gonna.
It's a 50-50, very much.
For those with good transfer accounts waiting to take advantage of fixture gains, will the bringing in of Leicester players be even further delayed beyond Match Week 30's home game versus Brentford on Sunday the 20th of March? And I'm assuming he means that because of what you mentioned. Would you rather have a West Ham Tottenham player? Because if Southampton win tonight, which is the start of Ian's question, our game, the Planet FPL derby, is on. Yeah,
the other thing with Leicester is just kind of thinking further ahead. So that You don't need, obviously, if Tottenham West Ham goes on that Sunday, most people are going to have Bowen, Kane, something. So you do not need the Leicester player that day. You'd be buying and probably not captaining. I actually think defensive assets would probably be quite interesting in that particular fixture, but you're not going there at the moment. And if you push that on further with Leicester's fixtures, match week 31, they go to Manchester United. And match week 32, they have Palace at home. And it's on the Saturday currently, but obviously could get moved to the Sunday. But if you go even further, go one more. In match week 33, Leicester are scheduled to go to Newcastle. Now, if they have still got to the quarterfinals of the Europa Conference League, that fixture is obviously going to be a Sunday. Definitely it's going to be a Sunday. And they're definitely going to play in the midweek in between as well. One of these additional games, be it they've still got to play Everton, play Norwich, Chelsea. One of those extra games is going to go in that midweek. I think I'd possibly worked out that Everton was possibly slightly the most likely. But I'll tell you more about that on Friday. Then they're going to play the weekend again. So you might find that in that group period there, Leicester might have 3-0. So they might play Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday. And that might be,
Good time to pile in.
Might be.
Indeed. That's the questions that we've had on Twitter. As I mentioned earlier, obviously, fixture planning, do tune in on Friday, which means wherever you are listening to the old pod, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iTunes, SoundCloud,
there is
Stitcher,
nothing
Spotify,
that anybody
blah, blah,
has
blah.
any confidence in to want to pile into Leicester at the moment. And actually, ironically, the piling will look better if they're in Europe, but the rotation problem obviously
is going to be
increases the deeper they go in Europe because they've got nothing to play for in the league either, right?
You're right. If you want access to James's fixture planning spreadsheet and a Slack channel that has lots of active Sky Fantasy managers, then do head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL. We'd love to have you as part of the community at the start of the month. Other than that, tomorrow, Clash of the Correspondents, James. Do you want to remind the listeners, you got Lee Jackson on, Aston Villa. Is it Aston Villa Leeds?
I've actually got Leicester penciled in v Norwich at the moment, actually, in that midweek of 33. Clash of Correspondents tomorrow. Yeah, an interesting one possibly for Sky players ahead of next Thursday. Villa v Southampton.
So Matt is on as
Lee
well.
Jackson and Matt Samuel.
Lovely, jubbly. So make sure you're subscribed for that as well. Other than that, look after yourselves and stay safe. Bye-bye.
That's not how you end the pod.
It's not.
Do you want to do it properly?
No. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Cue music, please, man-child.
And now we can record Tottenham.